Okay, Mitch, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was just having a glance at the description on your profile there on the event. Is this your first event, or have you been to a few?
It's my third one.
Your third one?
Yeah. And I wish I would have been here for all of them after going to my first, but I've been to, and I talked at the last two as well.
And I see you went quite deep on the choices and the thoughts and what drives us as individuals. Is that a large sort of discussion point in this, in the cypherpunk circles and the?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much, but I think it's an important part of being human, no matter what scene we're a part of, because it informs so much of why we do what we do and what drives us to do what we do and helps us keep doing what we do and keep it, like reforming what we do, evolving what we do so we can be more effective, or maybe even changing what we do because we need to start doing something else because what we're doing doesn't work for us anymore. But we can be much more powerful when we're doing all these kind of things consciously, rather than just going along with what other people are doing, or just going along with, I don't know, what, as I mentioned in my talk, there's all these things that motivate us unconsciously that don't necessarily serve us so well.
Consciousness expends a lot of energy though, right?
It does. And that's one of the reasons why we do things on autopilot, is that it takes so much less energy. And we don't want to be always in our heads thinking about everything. That makes life untenable. But there's so many things that we can do to make choices that are better. And it's worth spending, I find, worth spending that energy. Because it's so much less energy than trying to push away things that don't fit in with the autopilot version of reality. If we keep doing the autopilot version of reality, we're going to be going in a direction that isn't really appropriate for us, I find. And I can say it for myself for sure, but I've seen that in so many people I know and who I've met as well. It takes so much energy to keep doing something we know isn't appropriate, or we know that isn't so cool, or know we don't like, or know, even worse, that we hate doing. And yet we keep doing it out of autopilot because it seems like the easiest thing to do, but it's not.
But there's also the peer pressure or social pressures that are external to this internal autopilot that you were describing, right?
Oh, indeed. So last year, just as an example, Richard Stallman was here, and he gave a couple interviews, a talk, and his point of view doesn't 100% fit in with the ethos here. A lot of people here are libertarians and really don't like the idea of a central government at all under any circumstances. And they certainly don't like government spending or taxes. They hate that. But he was saying that he doesn't like the idea of cryptocurrency. That dug in hard to a lot of people here because it lets so many people avoid paying taxes. And he said that we need to be paying taxes so that people who don't have as much advantage and opportunities can have at least something to go on. That didn't sit well with people here, but he knows for himself that that was right for him, and he was willing to say it despite the social pressure to not say it. There's not all that many people who are willing to do that.
Often the argument is that they don't see where their taxes go, right?
Oh yeah, and I have problems with taxes too. I mean, now I pay taxes in Germany. I live in Berlin, and a lot of the taxes that I pay there go to the war machine. But in the US, it's a huge percentage going to things that I find don't align with my values at all. But it's a difficult situation. Here we are with these big governments. They've been around a long time. They're not going away very quickly. We have to be able to live with them. So, there's the ideal, what we would like, and then there's all these pragmatic things we can do. If you go too far with the pragmatism and compromise, who are we and how do we go forward and feel good about it? But everyone does that differently in different ways in their life. So for me, paying taxes, at least some of it in Germany goes towards education, for healthcare, for transportation, for fixing potholes and building bike lanes, things that I find make my life and many other people around me much better. And I would rather see things be even better than that, and I can come up with a whole bunch of ways in my own wacko way of looking at things. But that is not the world we live in now. It's just sort of what motivates me as an ideal of ways to aim towards to make things better.
And the tool sets that are being discussed or provided by, decentralized finance, cryptocurrencies, etc. They're not. These are not new tools any longer, right? They're almost, some of them are Bitcoin's 15 years old. Turns out, it seems like most people are not interested in these things, and arguably the same with privacy tools. We've had a few signs through Assange, Snowden, Cambridge Analytica, etc. over the last decade, and still the behaviour remains. So if the demand doesn't exist, or for some reason is not, who's adopting these tools? Like, who really?
Yeah, why are we doing something that isn't being adopted after all of this time? But the thing is, it doesn't need to be a vast majority of people adopting new things in order to improve the world. If people are super against it and we're pushing it anyways, that could be super destructive. If we do manage to implement it, it's probably going to be a lot of backlash coming at us, and it'll probably get worse rather than better, at least in the short and medium term. But if there are things that can improve things that other people can join in on, then they can. And if we're welcoming of people to join in and not trying with all of our energy to fight what we don't like, I'm glad there are people doing that. My approach is more like the name of this building, Paralelní Polis, which is parallel society, to create things in parallel to the society, create a niche, which we create something super positive and welcoming of people so that they can benefit from it along with us. And the more people who join, the more they can benefit. And then other places we can help start so that they can do that in their own unique way. And maybe that spreads. And that's the kind of what I'll call anarchy that works, when we self-organize based on the people who start and run and make things happen. And that can be really powerful. And it doesn't have to be a majority of people. It can be a really small percentage of people, and yet it can help so many people, especially as the problems that we're facing are so terrible. Climate change as being one horrible one, but distribution of wealth, where 0.1% of the population is soon to own 98% of the wealth. This is very unstable. And so many other things going on all at once. And so that's leading probably not somewhere so positive. And if we're not creating something tenable right now, there'll be nothing to key into for anyone when that stuff starts to really fall apart.
Yeah, and often we refer to the we, the collective, but we all dwell in very different geographic locations around the world with all our different rule sets, some being more beneficial to their local communities than others. And I can't help but feel like maybe that the language that's used often is this universal we, when we deep down we all know we're multiple different types of tribes dwelling in different systems, governance systems, some better than others.
Some worse than others.
But on the whole, globally, it seems, depending on how you measure it, of course, if you measure it purely on quality of life, not in terms of consumption, but in the basics, food, shelter, etc., seems like it's been slowly improving on the global stage, as opposed to getting worse. Often, libertarians or extreme people with extreme ideas lean towards things are getting worse, and that scares people off, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe the language needs to be more geared or weaved into the positive things that have happened. Sure, it's due to maybe corrupt systems, but the collective has benefited over time.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I like creating something positive and welcoming people in rather than saying, that sucks, and that sucks, and not only that, but you suck. You know, like that doesn't help bring people to your cause and make the world a better place. But like, so I'm deeply involved with what turns out to be a hackerspace movement. So I started one of the early hackerspaces in the US, which was Noisebridge, but I did it not on my own. I did it with a bunch of people who I knew and then met more and more who aligned with this vision, and we were helped by other hackerspaces that were forming in the US, and we were helped by the handful of hackerspaces that existed at the time, mostly in Germany. But the way this whole thing has spread is that each group was doing what they thought was best for their group, and not against any of the other ones and saying, you're doing it different than us and that's wrong. No, it was that they were doing it their way, we're doing it our way, and we can still help each other. And we can all be unique, good for the group that starts, runs it, etc., and be welcoming of anyone who wants to. And other people are free to start their own, and we'll help them as well, even if we disagree with certain things, even if we disagree a lot. If we have a whole bunch of these kind of communities all over the world, each one good for the people there, encouraging, supportive, that does make a lot of people's lives significantly better. It doesn't necessarily give them the basics, but it gives them a sense of purpose, confidence, accomplishment, which is invaluable.
The bio there on the website, I noticed you invented TV Be Gone, and as a youngster, teenager, maybe in my 20s, I can't recall right now how long ago it was, I actually purchased one of these online, and I used to go into town and turn all the TVs off in the shop windows, and muck about, and I felt so powerful.
It is a feeling of power.
And I'm just curious, how did that unfold, that device?
Well, I mentioned in my talk that TV was my first addiction, and it really was an addiction, hardcore addiction. I was at it for years. Every waking moment, pretty much, of my childhood was sitting in front of a screen, even as a kid, I knew I didn't like it. But it was taking my time, and I didn't know what else to do, so I kept doing what I knew, which was watch more TV. And that made me more of a target at school for the bullies, because I just grow fatter eating junk food. I didn't do anything useful. I didn't learn how to deal with other kids. I was just more of a target, which makes me want to withdraw into TV more when I got home. My childhood went away as a result of this. I hate TV. I really hate TV. And then when it started appearing everywhere in public places in the 90s, I couldn't do anything about that. But as a geek, I knew I could make a remote control to turn them all off, and I eventually did. The main thing for me to motivate me to do that was one for me, because I am just as easily manipulated by the messages on TV that repeat and repeat to sell me stuff I don't want or need, or to try to make me think I should be different than I am. The stories that are repeated and repeated aren't ones that are there for me in my life. They're there for other people's purposes, and not even for the personal purposes, but for more profit and power. And it doesn't really even help people. So I knew I needed to create something that would limit the exposure I had to those messages, so I could reinforce my own messages. And then I could share that with other people, and it turned out that a lot of people wanted it, because I have sold 880,000 of those things in 20 years. Kind of crazy. Gratifying, though.
Much respect.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.